This has Leafs fans fired up as we have multiple huge Leafs updates to go over today ahead of the biggest series in the last decade for this Toronto Maple Leafs team. We're going to break down those updates and discuss how this has huge implications going forward for not just this postseason, but the future of the team as well. We also have some interesting comments from both the Leafs side as well as some updates from the Panthers side, as well as we are now just hours away from game time. Stay tuned for all that in this episode. Before we get into it, if you're part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Leafs content. And don't forget, we will be live following tonight's game. So if you're part of the 71%, make sure to hit the subscribe button. There's some updates to go over today, and this is, fans are fired up about this. We finally been waiting for a round two for the first time in a few years, and it's going to be a very interesting one, and hopefully the beginning of something that we haven't seen in the Core 4 era, which is advancing to the third round. But a few things to go over today and some very interesting comments that at the end of the day, this is going to be a huge series, and that's going to have implications beyond just this season. So let's dive into this here. Big week for Mitch Marner, as we know. We'll start it off light a little bit here. He named his son Miles, so shout out to him. He jokingly said his son was smart enough to not come on hockey game day. Congratulations all around to the Marner family here, and obviously, shout out to his wife. But this actually, I'm very curious to see how he plays, because obviously, we all watch it from the hockey perspective. This is a very big moment the biggest moment, I would assume, in his life. So seeing how he's going to play is going to be a very interesting thing. But shout out to him. Must be not an ideal time, I guess, to have a kid, but it is what it is, or maybe it is an ideal time. But Darius, everybody's fired up about this series. It all starts tonight. And we see here, he took the ice before everybody else. It was an optional skate today. We do have some lines we'll dive into in a minute here, but he was the first one because, of course, he missed yesterday's practice. You have Justin Bieber out here on Instagram. This is the most electric series since, of course, the Tampa Bay one. But I'd even argue that given the current team's construction and the implications beyond this year with all the free agents, this is it. And a lot of updates here. Mitch Marner's the first one out, and we do have some lines as well. And Stolarz gets the nod, confirmed as the opening series goalie.
Yeah, like we talked about, the last couple of videos, Stolarz is going to be the starting goaltender until the wheels fall off at this point. No doubt about it in my mind. In terms of Mitch Marner, congratulations to Mitch, his wife, and the Marner family. That's fantastic stuff. And obviously he missed yesterday's practice, so now he's out there, today getting reps in, putting in some work before morning skate. So it was nice to see that as well. And I am curious, like you said, to see how he plays in not just tonight, because obviously I feel like he's going to have a bit of a boost. I'm sure he's feeling fantastic right now, but how he plays as the series goes on. And if the Leafs do advance to the third round, how he's going to play, because I can't imagine he's going to get too much sleep. And we saw how that affected John Tavares and also Simone Benoit at times, the last couple of seasons. So it's going to be interesting to see how he plays, but I think tonight he's going to come out with a bunch of jump. Obviously, he wasn't there yesterday. He's ready to go today, with a new child. So obviously he's going to have a bit of a boost there. So it's going to be fun to see what he brings to the table tonight. And a big game one against the Florida Panthers, obviously the biggest game for the Leafs since 2023. There's an opportunity here. Series hasn't started yet. There's an opportunity to right all the wrongs right here. And obviously the Panthers, we've talked about it ad nauseum. The game's going to start tonight, right? Series is going to start tonight, but they're a tough opponent. We've talked about it so much. Obviously, Tkachuk is ready to go. I still think there's something up with him. A lot of people think that he's totally fine. Why is he on a day-by-day schedule then? Why is he on a one day on, one day off schedule? I feel like that's weird. If he was 100%, maybe he'd just be practicing like the rest of the guys. But I feel like there's still something there with the team, but I don't think it's going to be a distraction. I think the Panthers are ready to go. I think the Leafs are also ready to go, and I think that the series is going to be a long one. And I also think that it could go either way. I honestly think it's going to be 50-50. I don't think one team's that much better than the other. I think both teams bring different things to the table. So it's really going to come down to goaltending and who kind of outweights the other team, honestly.
Yeah, and as you know, I mentioned it, Stolarz is getting the nod. There won't be any, bearing, I guess, a disaster, any Joseph Wall, probably for the rest of the year, given the way that he hasn't played in a very long time. Let's look into the projected rounds per Nick Barden here. So it's Knies, Matthews, Marner, has been confirmed now, basically. Pacioretty, Tavares, Nylander, Domi, Holmberg, McMahon, Lorentz, Lawton, Yarncrook with the same blue line, and, of course, Stolarz there. So they are rocking Holmberg in the center position. At least all signs point to it for tonight's game, which is going to be something to look out for. And as you look ahead to the Florida Panthers series, you mentioned it, Matthew Tkachuk. No Aaron Ekblad tonight, which is going to be, a good thing for the Toronto Maple Leafs, though he had a horrible game and in his return there. But regardless of that, any thoughts on these lines? Again, we kind of covered it yesterday, but Holmberg is going to be manning the center position with McMahon on the right wing now, with Domi on the left wing. So some juggling there. They're sticking with the fourth line, and seeing how their fourth line matches up against the Panthers is going to be interesting, though. As we know, the Leafs fourth line plays, a lot more than the Panthers fourth line. They don't run their fourth line too much, under 10 minutes a game. So it's going to be a very interesting series to see how the lines match up for. And we'll dive into some of the Florida stuff here in a minute, but Holmberg in the middle and McMahon on the right wing is quite interesting. I'm curious to see how long, if they do end up swapping McMahon and Pacioretty, though I think Pacioretty's game fits and suits pretty well to, trying to go opposite of the Florida Panthers.
Yeah, he wasn't going in game six, and that's why Pacioretty obviously dropped down and it worked out. He scored that goal, right? But I think that, like we've been talking about, his skill set is probably better suited for those two guys, Tavares and Nylander, and can kind of make that line work. So we'll see what happens. There's a lot of conflicting reports in terms of who's actually the fourth line and the third line on the Toronto Maple Leafs. And after practice, like we covered something yesterday where Holmberg was on the right and Domi was on the center position. And obviously that's swapped now. Domi's on the left wing, where I think he's actually the best suited in his career to play on the left wing. So that'll be fun to watch as well, and kind of how Holmberg mans that third line. And like you brought up, Florida, their top guys play quite a bit. And I think the Leafs have done a really good job of evening everything out throughout the first 6 games of the playoffs here. So I wonder if that's going to play a factor, the fact that some of the Leafs guys, depending on special teams, and, you see a lot more power plays and stuff like that earlier in the series. So that's going to play a factor until game 4. But then as the series goes on, because I imagine it's going 6 or 7 games at this point, what does that look like? What do the ice times look like? Are guys much more tired over on the other side? So it's going to be interesting to keep track of that stuff too. Like I said, I feel like there's going to be a ton of line matching, a bunch of that stuff. They're trying to get Marchand kind of away from, the bottom of the lineup. They want to, or he's on the bottom of the lineup. He's on the third line there right now, kind of penciled in, but I'm sure they want to get him close to some of the top guys to kind of bother them on the Leafs. So I don't know if that's going to work. I feel like the Leafs are all business this year, a bit of a different, thing to them this year. I don't know quite what it is, but we're going to find out in this series. That's for sure.
Yeah, and obviously let's look at some things to keep an eye on. It's a very interesting, tweet here, and I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. Obviously, the Panthers are on the ice at the Scotiabank Arena, getting to face Toronto in the second round series. The rink is like a living room of the hockey world. It's just cool. It's a great place, and shout out to the Florida GM. I mean, we're going to be going against Florida. We can have a little bit of props to them there. Is there anything you're looking out for in this series? And obviously, there's been a lot of things said. There's been a lot of discussions and discourse made about, hey, the Panthers, they have a shutdown line. They're going to shut down the Leafs core 4. Their top 6 is going to be able to shut down. I mean, the top line's going to be able to shut down the Matthews Marner line. How are they, and Nyes, of course, how are they going to go up against them? You can see this here. Things I'm watching out for tonight. And there's an interesting tweet. How does Toronto handle the matchups on home ice? Barkov, Reinhart, Lundell, and all these different guys are elite duos. Toronto can't get caught in any sideshows and gift Florida power plays. Florida was 16 for 18 in the PK. Toronto need to capitalize on their chances. So this is Florida has a strong penalty kill, all these different things. Is there anything you're looking out for? And also let us know down below in the comment section if there's anything you guys are looking out for, because Leafs are going to have to be pretty flawless here to win this series. And the biggest one for me, obviously, is going to be the top line. And if that, Carter Verhaeghe, is he going to be able to shut down that line, the Toronto Maple Leafs top line?
The biggest thing for me is not one thing in particular. It's not the power play. It's not the penalty kill. It's not one line in particular. And it's something that I don't know if a lot of people are talking about. But if you listen to what Berube is saying, I feel like it is going to be the biggest factor in this series. And it's on the Leaf side, and it's composure. And I think it's composure from the fan base as well, honestly, throughout the series. I think everyone needs to stay composed. I was freaking out, after game 5 against the Ottawa Senators, because I was like, here we go again. In this series, I think everyone, including the team, and I'm going to look to the team to kind of stay composed, like they did in game 6 when the Sens tied the game. They just went right back out there, got back to their game. I want to see that from this team. If they're able to bring that to the table, I think Florida's in trouble, I have to say. And a lot of people are going to laugh at that, but if the Leafs can stay composed, not take dumb penalties, when they're scored on, they can get right back to work and start playing their game. They're going to have a really good shot in this series and not letting anything get to them. Because, Florida's going to, Florida deals with a lot of outside noise. I mean, Matthew Tkachuk, I was watching him on Pat McAfee on his show, and he was saying that, there's so much going on behind the scenes with the Panthers, not even behind the scenes. There's suspensions to Aaron Ekblad, like multiple suspensions, and obviously he's been dealing with an injury. They don't care about any of that. He said this is not even a high pressure situation for this team. They've been in more high pressure situations, right? So they're going to stay composed. They've been here before. If the Leafs can match that, the scale will shine through, and I do believe that, and I think that it has. We've seen it already against the Ottawa Senators. So composure on all ends of the ice. It's not just not taking penalties, stuff like that. When you're scored on, when the antics, when the physicality comes up, you have to match it, especially if the Panthers are pushing first, but just staying composed in those moments.
Yeah, and we obviously know tonight's going to be, I expect it to be more electric than game 1 against the Senators. Obviously, Leafs have home ice advantage. The Panthers have a very strong forecheck, and something that I'm hoping that the Leafs are going to be able to actually match up against. I think Ottawa was a good test for Florida, or for the Leafs for Florida. But at the end of the day, if they gave up, if the Leafs, not to be pessimistic here, but if the Leafs give up as many odd man rushes to Florida as they did Ottawa, especially in those last few games, I am pretty confident in the ability for Florida to capitalize on those a lot more than Ottawa was. They need to get rid of that. That's kind of the biggest thing for me, and we saw it a lot there. Let's dive into some of the comments here before I wrap up. Greg Brewer came out and said, anytime you're playing the Stanley Cup champions, you're going to be the underdog. They've proven they're a great team over the last few years. We're a good team, too. We're approaching this business-like. We've got to go out and do our job and play the way we can. And he approaches everything business-like, and it's worked thus far. No panic after going up 3-0. No panic after going up, I guess. We're giving up 2 games, 3-2 here. Marner, it's going to be one to remember for a long time, just for what happened in the last 48 hours. Very grateful and very lucky. Going to try to go out there and play a hockey game and do my thing. I think there's a world where he has an electric game. I could also see a world where he maybe has a bit of a quieter game. I think either way, it's going to be interesting, but hopefully it's an electric one. And one last thing, Matthews on going up against Alexander Barkov. He's big, he's strong, he's good in the faceoff circle. He's probably the best two-way player, two-way center in the league, in my opinion. You got to fight for every inch. Okay, let's maybe call yourself the best two. I guess besides him, of course, we'll dive into there. But any thoughts on this? It's going to be a battle. Florida's a better team than Ottawa, and I don't know how close it necessarily is. But I also think that, the Leafs prepared themselves very, very well for this. And like I mentioned, I think, Brad Treliving made some moves, both at the trade deadline and the offseason, to match up for a series like this. Because this was always the most likely outcome, whether it was in the second round, the first round, whenever it was, this was always the most likely outcome for this team.
I think the one thing to look out for is I've been listening to a lot of podcasts, a lot of different, content out there to kind of get up to speed for this series and what Florida's been doing and what they've been doing well and stuff like that, right? The Florida Panthers, Matthew Tkachuk has said it, have look upon themselves in this series as the underdog. That's how they're taking it in the room. And nobody else thinks that way. We see it in the comments, and we see all you Florida Panthers fans in the comments flocking over here for this series, right? Nobody else thinks that way. They're the defending Stanley Cup champions. I mean, the odds-on favorite in this series is the Florida Panthers. Everybody's picking them to win the series. And in the room, the Florida Panthers think of as themselves as the underdog in the series. I think that's a very interesting dynamic heading into this series. And I feel like can possibly, depending on, some of the questions, I don't think the Panthers let the media get to them too much. But as the series goes on, depending what happens, I feel like that's going to be a weird dynamic that could mess with the team. So it's going to be very interesting to see.
Got to take game one. Aaron Ekblad is out. This is the time, and hopefully they can take care of business. But that'll wrap it up, and hopefully we get the Florida Panthers that we saw towards the tail end of the regular season, even though they were dealing with a bunch of injuries and not the one that destroyed the Lightning. But either way, we'll be live following tonight's game, and hopefully the Leafs can take care of business.